Hey guys, this is Bryn with the Mama on the Rocks, and we are here with our expert interview for Fridays Are for Facts for our extreme parenting community. So tonight we have with us Melissa Bates, who I have known basically my entire life because I just have awesome people in my life, and you should all be jealous. So I have known Melissa since at least kindergarten, if not before then. We went to school all 12 years together. 13 years, I guess, because kindergarten doesn't count. Does it count? I don't know. Anyway, we've known each other forever and ever, amen. And we lost touch after we graduated, and then found each other again as adults and had no idea that we both had extreme children. And Melissa has what feels like to me at least 12 kids. It's actually only 4, but when
that sounds right.
4 get together with my 2, it is crazy town. So Melissa, I'm gonna let you talk a little bit about yourself. Just give a little intro about being an extreme parent, what you do, and then we'll get started with some questions.
Okay. I'm Melissa Bates. I have 4 kids. My husband and I have been married for 14 years, I think. Yes, 14 years. And 4 kids, 2 of them are extreme. One of them has 5 diagnoses. The other one currently only has some medical diagnoses, but that comes with psychological supports, neurological stuff that comes with psychological supports. And they've already expressed to us that we should keep an eye out for that, but we kind of informed them that that's well on our radar. He's
like 3 years, thanks.
Yeah, he's a seeker in every sense of the word. So, but we live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I work from home. I have a home-based business, and my husband is currently working from home, which is 6 people in a house. It's a 2-bedroom townhome for right now. And yeah, I almost did this in my car just to get away. So that's pretty much us. We love being outside. We love doing everything playing in the mud. I posted pictures yesterday of kids playing in the mud, doing all the kind of stuff that most people roll their eyes at. But it's sensory play, and it gets the kids' energy out, and it makes bedtime a little more bearable. So we love all that kind of stuff.
Tell us your kids' ages.
Our oldest is 10, and then we have 7, 5, and 3.
And your 10-year-old is a daughter, and your 5-year-old is a son, and they're your extreme kids, so they skip every other one.
Yes.
So
so we have our 10-year-old is extreme. She's one of 5 diagnoses, and then our 7-year-old is just the normal 7-year-old boy weird, and then our 5-year-old is a little more than that. Yeah. he's on the radar.
Okay, let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
I love it because I know Audrey has a son and a daughter, and she has 2 kids on the spectrum. So I think it's awesome to come across. It's not very often that we come across parents, first of all, that have 2 extreme kids in the household, and secondly, that they're opposite genders. So I think that's a really interesting dynamic. And I try to, whenever I do a topic week that has to do with ADHD or autism, I always try to make sure I put in things about girls, because their behaviors tend to go under the radar longer. But then once they're diagnosed and you try to get them help for it, you have all that drama and emotion and all that kind of other stuff that goes into it, and makes it that much more complicated of a dynamic. Which kind of leads me into the first thing I wanted to talk about tonight. So Melissa and I went to school together, literally kindergarten through graduation of high school. I have spent the night at her house. I have been to her church. She has been to my house. I never once knew until we were grown adults with kids of our own that she ever had any diagnosis. So walk us through that, Melissa, because obviously we're both 38. So, in that region. And so it was a long time ago, and mental health was not what it is now. So talk to us about what that looked like for you guys.
So I was diagnosed when I think I was in 2nd grade, maybe 1st grade. Maybe 1st grade is when it started, and then 2nd grade was when it actually got rolling. So I am the youngest of 4, and my oldest brother is he has Tourette's, and then I'm pretty certain he probably had ADHD too. I don't know that he was ever diagnosed for that, because some of those symptoms kind of are similar. So, and then my other brother has Tourette's as well. So my mom was kind of familiar with some of that kind of stuff, but she literally, she would say, she tells me now that when I was about 3, that her job was just literally to keep me alive, because I was jumping off of stuff into everything. I had more broken bones by the time I was 6 that they were asking me they were telling my parents to leave the room in the ER to ask me what actually happened to me.
Oh my God.
So I was my children, and I'm getting the payback for that for sure.
Also, for anyone watching the playback and anyone who doesn't know Melissa, this is extra funny if you know her family, because her parents have ministered in our tiny town forever.
Yes.
And her dad, like, legitimately, correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, but I'm pretty sure preached at the same, like, non-musical instrument church for 100 years, and is like the sweetest, most docile man you'll ever meet. And so to think of Melissa just like total running chaos is just comical at this point.
Which is also funny because he's like that to most people, but in our house, and this is recording and it's going to be on Facebook, so he might see it. I don't know. But he was not always that way at home.
Good for him.
I remember, I don't even know if I should say this, but I remember him literally breaking a meter stick on my butt in the church parking lot. Like, it snapped in half.
So you're saying that's wrong, Melissa?
What'd you say, Mom?
Are you saying that's wrong?
I'm saying it was survival for them too, I think. With all 4 of us, I think they were just trying to survive like we are, so.
Yep.
So talk to me about, you wrote a guest post for me, which I do not accept guest posts like hardly ever. And you wrote a guest post for me that has been wildly the most popular guest post I've ever shared, that just kind of talked about what it was like to grow up, not only 30 years ago with ADHD, but as a female with ADHD, and what that looked like and what that felt like. What I'm hoping to capture in the next 20 minutes of us talking is for parents like me who, I would have probably had an anxiety diagnosis had that existed 30 years ago, but I wouldn't have had a spectrum disorder diagnosis or an ADHD diagnosis or anything like that. So help those of us who haven't experienced that firsthand understand, what types of things did you think? What types of things, what did it feel like going through with, other peers and things like that as you were growing up? What were your challenges? Because I think for me as a mom, anytime I can put myself in my son's shoes, it helps me to be that much more understanding. Mom, what are you doing right now? Sweet molasses, get a tripod.
That's what I was doing.
Oh my gosh, I am sending you one.
Wait.
Sorry, Melissa. My mom apparently is making me have ADHD for this video.
Are you still there?
All right, go.
That's funny. So growing up with ADHD was, when I was younger, I obviously didn't know any better. It was just kind of who I was, and I didn't understand why people would look at me different. I didn't understand why, really at a young age, probably kindergarten, I think the hardest thing that I struggled with was I didn't understand why people thought I was weird, because to me, I was just like having fun like all the other kids, but my fun looked a little bit different. So I don't know, it was probably, I didn't really notice that people were looking differently at me until probably second or third grade, right around the time my parents got me diagnosed. And they had to pull me out of school and drive me to, I think, Canton, to go to a doctor who specialized in it, who actually knew what they were doing. Because now, we live in Cincinnati, they have a whole clinic literally based on ADHD and all the spectrum stuff. And that's common in a lot of places now. But when we were kids, that wasn't around. So they had to make the drive. And so I would get out of school all day some days if it was a long appointment. If it was even a 30-minute appointment, it was still half a day of school missed. So that kind of thing, people started looking at me different. Why are you out of school so much? And I would just say I'd have a doctor's appointment because I didn't understand why that was different. Everybody has doctor's appointments. Side note, my husband is downstairs yelling at our kids right now.
Perfect.
So just right on cue.
I told Melissa today, I was texting her and I said, well, I finished all 14 days of this new course. I'm ready to make the videos, but I told Spence, you have to take the kids somewhere else. And outside my window, yelling at them does not count.
It's true.
Yeah.
So as I was growing up, I kind of started feeling a little, you get to second grade, third grade, kids start making their friends. And that's kind of when you grow up, especially in a small town, everybody kind of has their friend groups by the time they get to fourth grade. And by that point, I didn't have any friend groups. It was just me. And I talked to everybody. I was, as far as I knew, everybody liked me, thought I was fun, whatever. And then as I got older, middle school, it's rough anyway, especially for girls. But then I walk through the halls and start hearing people talking and hearing the whispers and things like that. And that really started getting to me. And I really struggled with self-worth and self-confidence. And there was even a point when there was one particular person who it just kind of seemed like they made it their mission to make my day miserable in every way possible. So I remember very distinctly in I think freshman year, I was talking to my dad after he picked me up from school, and I said, I don't want to go here anymore. I don't want to go here anymore. They're making my life miserable. I can't handle it anymore. And he literally drove me around town and showed me the options of where I could go to school, which in Heath, Ohio is like Heath High School and the whatever that small
like Leeds
Bible-based,
I'm pretty sure is like your
yeah. So, and he was trying to be helpful and everything, but it just wasn't going to happen. So he was like, you're going to have to basically just suck it up and do it. And so it got to a point where it was pretty rough. In middle school, I had a sleepover. You were there. And I invited some of the people who I thought were my friends, and we all were hanging out and stuff. And then I heard a couple of them in the hallways the next day talking about how they went because their parents made them go. Things like that. Really,
after this, you better tell me who these people are, because I am coming for them. I know every one of them.
I don't hold any grudges against anybody for
I don't
like it's just it's just one of those like it's one of those things that it was the hardest thing I think that I ever went through, but it taught me so much, and it taught me how to it taught me resiliency of, life sucks sometimes, but you're just going to have to pick it up and do the next right thing and do the next right thing and do the next right thing, no matter how hard it is. Mm-hmm. So, looking back on it now, it taught me a lot, but going through it, I didn't understand a lot of it because the literature wasn't big back then. And my mom knew a lot about it because she had some experience with that with my brothers. And she was also in the school like weekly getting on the teachers because the teachers were treating me differently. And I remember hearing some really ugly things from some of the teachers about my future and all that kind of stuff. And my mom was in the school, and she was threatening jobs.
About that. There was one specific instance when we were young that a teacher said something and your mom went ham on them.
Yeah. One of my teachers said that I wasn't going to amount to anything, and that I don't remember how she phrased it. She said it was something about basically to just give up because I was just a bad kid. And my mom, she said,
the preacher's wife went 0 to Karen in a hot minute.
I get it, honestly, that she is little, but she is a fighter. So she got all up on that teacher, and she went she was making phone calls and straight to the principal or straight to the school board office, and just all up in everybody's business saying, this is going to change or somebody's getting fired because I'm not dealing with this anymore. And there was a lot of fight that they had to put in just to get me through school because the supports weren't there. I didn't have a 504. Well, maybe I had a 504. I didn't have an IEP.
Yeah.
But my 504, even back then, was very,
it
was basic. Small school, small town, not real funding of any kind. So it was very basic. And my mom basically had to be the forefront of making things happen.
Talk about how swimming helped you, because you were a tremendous athlete, and so talk about how that was a support for you, how that changed things for you, because I know that kind of coincided with some of the same ages that you're talking about now.
Yeah, so swimming and sports in general, I've always been very athletic. I've always loved sports, and that is a really good thing for kids with ADHD anyway. We're very multitasking kind of people, and so that gives our brains, it feeds both parts of our brains. So the part that we're getting in school does not feed the part where we need to be active and moving and doing things, and that heavy work and the neurological stimulation and all that kind of stuff, the calming of the sensory nerves and the moving and that kind of thing. So once I got involved in swimming, it really kind of helped me. We were practicing long practices, so it helped get a lot of the extra energy out between school and home, because now, you know, if your kids aren't in sports, then they say run them outside, let them run outside for 30 minutes or whatever when they get home. But that allowed me to actually get out some energy and get out. It kind of cleared my mind too. It gave me a chance to focus on something else. It gave me a chance to focus on something else.
Was that different?
It was a good outlet for everything.
I know you played softball and you played volleyball as well, but I wonder, because like we've had Briggs in different sports, and of course the age makes a difference, but he tends to do better in things that are solo activities. So like that's why I asked specifically about swimming, because I know like I've always swam, and when I swim, I have to think about what I'm doing. I have to think about the strokes. When you're in the water, you're thinking about what you're doing, versus like when he did jujitsu or karate, versus when he played soccer and he's on a team and he's like mad that the other team is scoring and whatever. And so those outbursts maybe he's more prone to having those. So can you talk about that, how that's different or how that affected you differently?
Swimming definitely was my favorite thing because of that reason, because there's a lot of overstimulation, just, you know, for anybody in general in school, but for kids with ADHD and sensory things, I'm pretty sure I probably had some sensory stuff, but it just wasn't diagnosed. But for going through school, it's like, you know, and like our kids, you hold it together all day long. And then you're trying to please everybody, and you're trying to just get through the day kind of thing. But swimming, when I hit the water, you can't see anybody else around you. It's just you in the water. And it's just, for me, it was really calming, because it made my body was working in every way, because you work muscles you never knew you had. And it worked me in a way to where it just kind of became therapeutic. Very much, you know, I'd put my head down and I just think through the day, and it helped me kind of clear my head, so that when I got done with sports, I was in a much better place mentally. It was for that very reason.
Do you think that you got the same things out of team sports, or was that different for you?
I think it was different. I mean, in swimming you have relays, but it's hard to explain. There's something really, for me, there was something really good in just every sense. It's a mental place, a physical place, a spiritual place, actually. There's just something, you can go somewhere else, and I could go somewhere else mentally and just be me in the water. And that was, and the feeling of the water on your skin as you're moving through the water, it's almost like that, like we do Thera brushing or Thera something, I can't remember what it's called, with Braylon, our oldest. And it was almost that kind of feeling as I was going through the water. So it helped calm my nervous system, and it helped redirect my thoughts. And it was just a really good escape.
Yeah. For those who aren't familiar with that, I don't know, Audrey, if you've seen that or had that with OT. It's like a small plastic round brush with plastic bristles that bend. So it's almost like the idea of Japanese dry brushing, but it doesn't hurt. So it's soft, but it's firm. And so there are specific ways you're supposed to brush their skin. And Briggs really loves it when he'll lay in my lap and I'll do his head and everything like that. And it really does calm them down at night.
It's
better than anything else. Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to kind of go over is, now I know you because you're the chief of my village, but for those that don't, raising an extreme child, I don't feel like it matters if you've had a diagnosis, if it matters if you feel like you understand what your kid is going through. When you're in the moment, when you're dealing with a meltdown that's going on for 2 hours, it feels like absolute torture, regardless of who you are, I feel like. But how do you maybe see it differently going into it, maybe the lead up for when your kids are getting fired up, or when they're calming, or when you're talking to their specialist? What things have been helpful for you because you've been there before? Because I know, like in Spence and I's situation, he doesn't understand anxiety at all. He only, from what he's dealt with me for the last 15 years. And so when Briggs is going through an anxiety episode, I'm like super nurturing. Like I hold him and Spence is like, oh my gosh, quit whining. Like, well, I'm like, yeah, you're helping in zero ways. But, and I know we deal with that and we talk about it, but I feel like in that instance specifically, I am able to be a little bit more patient because I understand it. But the next breath, I might be yelling in a monster voice. So talk about like what that's been like for you because you've been through it.
Well, I still yell in a monster voice sometimes. In fact, 2 days ago, I literally grabbed our 3-year-old had one of those horses with the cloth horse. It's on a stick kind of thing. And the stick came out of the cloth because why not? And they were hiding in the room, whatever. So I saw it in there after I'd taken it from him a few times. And it was, Braylon was our oldest. She was in the middle of she was kind of in that beginning phases of a meltdown. And then our 5-year-old, he's the opposite, by the way. Like they are extreme kids in opposite ways, which is an interesting dynamic. But he started doing his thing and going a million miles an hour, and I couldn't get him under control. And it was just a really long day anyway. And I grabbed the stick and I hit it against the dresser just out of frustration, and it broke in half and shattered. And all of my kids looked at me like I was the weird one and I was the one with the problem. So I still have those moments, but I think it's easier to kind of see those coming on with her. Like Bobby, my husband, he's getting a lot better, but he just doesn't understand it. He's an accountant, and everything has a box. Everything's black or white. It's this way or that way, and that's just not how it works with any of this stuff. So it's harder for him anyway. But for me, having been through some of that, like I can see on her face, and I can look in her eyes and see what she's feeling, and it takes me back. Some of those times it really takes me back to feeling those feelings, and it brings back all those feelings again. And those are the times that especially if she's struggling with something and it's been it's an emotional thing for her. It's really hard for me not to cry with her because I remember those things. And I know exactly what she's going through. And I try to tell her, like, I live this. I know exactly what you're talking about, but it's not going to last. It's not going to last, but she's 10. So, that only goes so far. I think having experienced it makes it easier to see it, and see things that are coming on and read her better, I guess. But in a way it makes it harder emotionally because I'm dealing with her, everything that's going on with her and everything that she's going through, and trying to help her work through that. But I'm also dealing with my own frustrations because, and I'm not a girly girl. Like I'm the kind of, like you suck it up and get over it. Let's cry about it for 5 minutes, and then you're gonna have to go somewhere else because I can't do it anymore. Yeah. But so I'm dealing with that aspect of it, but I'm also dealing with my own frustrations and things that just it brings up in me. So it makes it overall, I'm thankful, but it's still hard.
Yeah. Okay, before we go, we have 5 minutes left, but You talked to me, now it's been probably a couple weeks now, but you had a real breakthrough moment with B. She was having this massive meltdown. And as we all know, anyone that ends up watching this playback, when you're an extreme parent or you're a special needs parent, I don't care what your child's diagnosis is. I do not care. You will try every strategy. Something will work for 10 days and then it will go completely south. And then you'll try it again 2 days from then. And it's like you never tried it before and everything's magical. Yeah. And so you just have to constantly be changing up your stuff all the time, your tactics. And this particular thing like really stuck out to me big time. So will you just just for the brief synopsis of 5 minutes, like tell us what that looked like and how you kind of got through that? Because I think we've definitely been trying to implement this in our household, and I think a lot of people can benefit from it.
Yeah, sure. There was I don't know why I reacted the way I did. I truly felt like it was probably the spirit saying you need to calm down. But she started to go into one of her meltdowns, and when she starts to really, really melt down, she starts banging her head, she starts kicking things, she starts throwing things, she ends up with bruises and scratches and all sorts of stuff all over her. So and that started, and usually there's like kind of like a lead up to it, but this time it just kind of went from I'm kind of getting there to bam, we're there, and everybody's taken by surprise. And she just started losing it. And she was in her bed. The girls have bunk beds. And so she's got the top bunk. She's in her bed. She's losing her mind, banging her head on the bed frame, and hitting the wall and everything. And I just climbed up in her bed, and I just started taking everything out of her bed that she could possibly throw or hit somebody else with or hurt herself with or something like that. And I was trying to convince her to come down, and finally she came down to the bottom bunk with me. And I said, if you're going to do that, you need a safe space to do that. You can't do that up there because you're going to fall out of your bed. You're going to break something. If the bed breaks, the whole thing comes down and you're going to hurt somebody down here. So I finally got her down, and I just kind of gave her the space to do whatever she felt like she needed to do within reason. Mm-hmm. You can't throw things. You can't hit me, but if you need to hit something, hit the pillow. If you need to scream, scream into the pillow. If you need to, whatever you need to do, here are your boundaries, but do it. And it took, it was probably a good 45 minutes. And then probably another 15 minutes after that. And it was all over. She's got OCD. So it was all over. She had 2 pens in her bed, or she had crayons in her bed. That's a whole other thing, but she had broken crayons in her bed. And I told her she could have a pen, and then she lost it. So at the end of that whole thing, she ended up just curling up next to me and burying her head in my lap, and she looked up at me with tears just streaming down her face, and her face was beet red, and she said, "Mommy, if I give you the crayons, can I have that pencil?" And I was like, we could have saved an hour, but yes, you can. But she had to get there herself, and there was no way for me to be able to talk to her. So just giving her that safe space and giving her that space of, and I let her cuddle up with me, as long as, if you're going to hit me, you're not welcome near me. I'm going to move to the other side of the room. But if you're going to be kind, I will sit with you, and you can lay in my lap and cry. You can hit the pillow right next to me, whatever. But here's your boundaries, but do what you have to do. And she was able to actually work herself through that for the first time. The girl's 10 years old. Yeah. And for the first time, she was able to actually work herself through that problem and reach the conclusion herself. Yeah. And
that was such a victory.
And I cried for the next 40 minutes.
When you texted me, I was like, yes!
I know, it was huge.
Yeah. I think it's really important for us as parents, for educators. Like whenever I speak to teachers, I always say this, like, give your child boundaries. They need physical boundaries and they need visible boundaries, whether that's setting a timer they can see, whether that's putting a tape box on the floor around their desk where they're allowed to walk, they can stand up as long as they stay in there. That's a big thing with Briggs. Like he has his space at the dinner table. If you want to stand up and eat, go for it. But if you make a mess, that's yours to clean up. So same thing for working. He has flexible seating, but he has a specific space he has to stay in. And again, same thing for meltdowns. And we've always done that. He only has things on his bed that if he throws them, they're not going to hurt himself or someone else because of that same reason. So, good job doing that, because I know that's insanely hard, especially when those things go on and on forever, because it seems like it will never end.
Yeah, Bobby came in the middle of it, and he started to come in, because his thing is he comes in and, he's going to be the bear, and he's going to break it up, and he's going to fix it, because that's what men do. And he came in and he just went and left. I was like, that's probably the best thing you could have done.
Yeah, absolutely. We need some sort of tap out button, I feel like. I'm going to
red flag.
Like, listen, when the light is green, you're allowed to come in. If it's any other color, you better stay the heck away from this door.
That's right.
Well, I am so grateful for you. You know, I tell you as many times as I can think of it, how grateful I am to have you in my life and in my kids' lives. And one of the last lessons in the series that I was writing, is finishing up today, is one of the days is called Training Your Tribe, or Train Up Your Tribe. And it talks about how important it is to surround yourself with supportive people and people that even if they don't live it, they're willing to listen and they're willing to learn, and to cut your losses with toxic people. Because I think as hard as it feels in the moment, it is so freeing once you have people around you that are really in your corner and really rooting for you, which is what this group is. And I'm so grateful for it. So thank you so much for taking your time to talk to us. If you'd like to pretend for at least one more hour that we're talking, I will vouch for it. Have Bobby text me and I will say, don't text me again because we are on a call and it's important.
I'm so down for that.
And if you need me, I'll be in the bathtub using my sweet new board to prop up my audiobook.
That's awesome.
All right. See you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Mom.